Hey there, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, you'll be learning how to paint this easy watercolor sunset sky tutorial, and stick around because you'll learn the secret to mixing brown when we're not even going to have any brown paint in our paint palette. So what's the color mixing secret? Stay tuned to find out. Let's get started.
Alright, so to start off, I'm wetting the entire surface of the paper. I am using cold press watercolor paper by the brand Arches. It's 100% cotton, which means it is very absorbent. And so now at the bottom of the paper, I'm applying cadmium yellow. All the paints I'm using in this tutorial are by the brand White Knights. So I'm adding now the second color, which is quinacridone rose, and when you mix these two colors together, the yellow and the pink create this really nice soft light orange color. And as you can see, I'm starting to create a variegated wash, which means that there are multiple colors blending together to create one seamless wash. The third color I'm using is turquoise blue, and when you mix it with the quinacridone rose, it creates a really beautiful purple or violet color. And you can see the transition from the bottom of the page to the top of the page gradually gets darker. And at the very top, I'm adding indanthrene blue to be the darkest part of the sky. And when I mix it with the turquoise blue, it creates a nice medium hue. And so now we've got the first layer completely done. What you want to do is just let it dry. Alright, now we are working on the second layer. This time I'm using the wet on dry technique, which means I'm not wetting the paper. I'm just using pigment straight out of the palette, pigment that's already diluted. So again, I'm going over the same parts of the painting with the exact same colors. As you can see with the wet on dry technique, because the pigment is less diluted, it's more vibrant. So I added cadmium yellow again at the bottom of the painting, quinacridone rose in the middle, and then turquoise blue in the upper half, and I'm blending them together again to create this really beautiful multicolored wash. And what I'm really looking for during the second layer, I'm aiming to make sure that the colors are vibrant and that they are blending nicely and seamlessly and naturally. So you don't want to add color in one straight line. That doesn't look very organic. You want to make sure the paint is blending in a way that is just very uncontrollable. That's the whole point of watercolor. Don't try to force it to go anywhere. Just let it mix the way it's meant to mix. It will give it a much more organic feel, and then it will make the sky look a lot more natural and more realistic. So as you can see, I'm just adding some more pigment towards the top to make it darker, and I'm adding a little bit of pigment in areas that I think are a bit too light, or in areas that I think didn't quite mix as seamlessly as I would have liked. So just take a couple of minutes to touch up a little bit of your painting, but make sure you're not overworking your painting. Alright, so as you can see here, I'm just putting the final touches on this second background layer, just adding a little bit more pigment where I feel like the colors could be a bit more saturated and a little bit darker in that upper half of the sky. And then when I'm happy with it, I will leave it alone. Alright, so I'm going to share with you a color mixing trick. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to mix your quinacridone rose with the turquoise blue with the indanthrene blue. By doing this, you're going to create a beautiful, rich, dark purple color. And we're going to use this dark purple to layer over the yellow in the bottom half of the painting. If you understand color theory, you know that purple and yellow are complementary colors. That means they're opposite on the color wheel. And when you mix these two colors together, they create brown. So since watercolor is all about layering, we're going to layer the purple on top of the yellow to create a brown. Therefore, we don't even need a fifth brown pigment in this painting because we will create it by layering purple on top of yellow. How cool is that? Alright, so make sure that your painting has actually dried, and once you have confirmed that it is dry, we're going to go ahead and paint the mountains. So take your paintbrush, and what you're going to do is you're going to start drawing the outline of the mountains. So you want to make sure that the mountains look uneven, right? Because in nature, things don't look uniform and blocky and perfect. So we're going to make dips and we're going to make peaks that are jagged, that are uneven, and we're going to try to make it look as organic as possible. So take your purple and go across the bottom of the painting. If you need to, you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just creating the outline first and then filling it in. If that's easier for you, go ahead and do that. And make sure that this layer is relatively light because we're going to paint a second layer in front of it, so make sure it's not too dark. So in this section, all I'm doing is using a small hand fan to speed up the drying process. You can use a hair dryer. All I had was a hand fan on me. It's not warm air, but it is still air that is helping dry the paper a bit faster. So you can do that if you're impatient. If not, just come back when it's already dry. So once you've confirmed that the layer has completely dried, you're going to take the purple and you're going to start painting a second layer. This time it's important to make sure that the paint is not as diluted as when you painted the first layer of mountains, because you want to make objects in the foreground appear darker, right? So if you dilute it too much, then we're not going to have as much contrast between the background and the foreground. So take your purple, make sure that it is more saturated and less diluted, and then you're going to use the exact same technique for drawing the mountains. Again, make sure that they are varied. So as you can see here, some of the mountain peaks are shorter, some are a little taller, and you just want to create a lot of visual variations so that it looks more natural, and so it looks also aesthetically appealing. So as you can see here, I'm just going over parts of the mountain, making it a little more jagged in certain areas, making it look a bit more defined and to give it that illusion of rockiness. And so do this as much as you want until you're content, but just make sure you're not overworking the mountains, because there is a point where less is more, and so you don't want to keep adding more and more and more, and then you reach a point where your painting's just not salvageable, it's overworked. So we want to avoid that. So this part's a lot of fun. We're going to be splattering stars in the sunset sky, and I'm using Winsor & Newton white ink to do this. You can also use white gouache. It works just as well. Basically, what you're doing is you're loading up a paintbrush with the white ink, then you're going to use a second paintbrush and you're going to gently tap it against the paintbrush with the white ink, and you'll see that it'll create this splattering texture in the sky, and it makes it look really beautiful, really cosmic. And then I'm using that paintbrush and I'm going to make a few of the stars a little bit bigger, so you have some variation between teeny tiny stars and bigger, fuller stars. It just makes the sky look more complete. Oh, and as you can see here, I made a little mistake accidentally with the paintbrush. It's not a big deal. I just went over it with the white ink and tried to blend it in, but you know, mistakes happen. It's okay. It's part of the learning process. Now the story for this painting is that there's a tiny little moon there. Maybe it's some kind of different planet. I don't know. Justify it any way you want. So lastly, I am just putting a little star in the upper right hand corner. It looks like a little T or a little cross actually, and that's about it. The sky is all done. Alright, so the final part of this painting is that I decided to go over the foreground layer of mountains one more time because I thought that there wasn't enough contrast between the background mountains and the foreground mountains, so I decided to go over the foreground with one more layer of paint. The difference is that this time I decided to make the layer a little bit less even, meaning some spots were just a little lighter or just a little darker to give the mountains the illusion of texture, but not being so heavily textured, like you see all the rockiness, all the jagged, sharp edges. So that was just a nice little extra touch. You can do that if you want. And if your mountains look perfect the way they are, then just leave them, wait for the stars to dry, and then we're going to get to the last and final part of the painting, which tends to be a lot of people's favorite part. Alright, so the final step is to peel the tape away. Make sure you do this one by one, go slowly, be careful, and once you've peeled each piece of tape away, you get to look upon your beautiful artwork. How satisfying is it to see your painting complete and beautiful and ready to show everyone?
Wasn't that fun? If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to this channel if you want to be part of a community of amazing artists. Now, grab a tea or a coffee, get cozy, and check out this next watercolor tutorial. I know you're going to enjoy it. See you in the next video.